Webinar on the solar eclipse. I'm Pam Carruthers and I'm a soul astrologer, and I help you navigate major life transitions gracefully with soul astrology and spiritual life coaching. And this eclipse, the theme that I've started to work with is the divine feminine, and it's in Pisces, this eclipse, the last degree of Pisces, and also March the 20th is the day of the spring equinox. So it's incredibly significant and very rare that this can happen. And tonight I'm going to talk to you about what this eclipse signifies, what the moon's nodes represent, a slight little bit of astronomy but not much, but more important, the spiritual significance of this solar eclipse. I'm going to touch upon the Vedic myth, the churning of the oceans, which explains the deeper meanings of eclipses, and very important for you in your personal life, and also the lunar mansion, that is a Vedic technique, and guide you through a healing process at the end. So please watch till the end. Now, the nature of eclipses, they're a wild card, right? They're inconsistent, they're stressful, they can expose hidden problems, they can be chaotic, and unexpected events can occur. And at a solar eclipse, external events that we haven't consciously caused can, and that's the whole point, they can occur. And of course, at an eclipse, we see this extraordinary corona around the sun. We see the fire of the sun. So it's a very magical thing to observe. This is the chart for the solar eclipse. It's set for London, therefore the ascendant, which is, those who know astrology, the ascendant is at 24 degrees of Gemini. But it's activating the relationship signs, because the nodes of the moon is the south node, it's the south node eclipse. The nodes of the moon are in Aries, the south node, and the north node is Libra. And they are at 10 degrees of Aries, and they go backwards through the zodiac. Venus moved into her own sign of Taurus this week. Mars has been in Aries for quite a while and still there till the end of the month. So they're both strong. They're both in their own home signs, signs they rule. And Mars governs the south node, Venus governs the north node. It's basically a little bit of astrology. And I'll be looking, this is a chart obviously with glyphs in, symbols, and I'll show you it later on with abbreviations. Because this is about Pisces, Sun and Moon, 29 degrees, 27 minutes in Pisces, that ruling planet is Neptune. Here's Neptune, it's like a trident, who is the god of the sea, the oceans. It's water, and it's primal water, deep feelings, emotions. That's everything to do with Pisces. I'm using the divine, the essence of the divine, because at the Eclipse Conference in 1999 in Plymouth, I was at an astrology conference way back then, and at that time I had this intuition, and it was to do with the Tree of Life. In the Tree of Life, and I'm not an expert at the Kabbalah, I hasten to add, but the Tree of Life, the root is called Malkuth, and it's earth. Then the next sphere is called Yesod, and that is the moon. The next one up is called Tiferet, and that is the sun. Then you go through this abyss, Pluto, and then you reach Neptune. And this is what is occurring at an eclipse. There's an alignment with the earth, the moon, and the sun. Therefore, I'm suggesting that we have a connection to Neptune, to the crown chakra. And because it's governed by Neptune, Pisces, this kind of makes it even more significant. And the path that leads up through this central pillar is the part of the High Priestess. And she is this enigmatic figure, very lunar in her character, and she has these two pillars either side, and she even holds a scroll called a tarot. And she's meant to know all your other lifetimes, all the book of knowledge, everything that's ever lived. And notice her, her semicircle, her moon energy. And there is a veil. There's a veil behind her to the great unknown of the great sea. Therefore, I thought I'd like to implant that into your consciousness tonight. The other tarot card, actually I chose today, so it kind of drew my attention toward it, is the Eight of Cups in the tarot. And this shows an eclipse. That's exactly what you see in this card. And it's talking very much this red figure who's symbolic of the Fool. If you know the tarot, it's the Fool. And what he's leaving behind these cups, which are all standing, and he's moving up on a journey to higher ground. So it's about seeking deeper meaning, focusing on personal truth, looking for answers, and concentrating on what is important, and devoting more time to the spiritual. It's also a card to do with moving on, and that is very, very relevant to this eclipse. Realizing that the current cycle is over, letting go, finishing that up and walking away. And the 8 is 2015, that's the year. We are in the 8th year, and that is the feminine, the divine feminine, the essence of the feminine, taming the instinct of the lion, the beast. It's called the Strength card. Therefore, 8 happens also to be a number of abundance in another system that I use. Now this particular eclipse is occurring, and here you see the bright yellow arrow pointing at it. Here's this eclipse, it's down here. It's occurring not over any land mass, which is unusual. But this picture is quite an important one because it shows you that some countries never have an eclipse passing over their country. You can see this is from 2001 to 2020, so 1999 in the UK we did actually have one. But you can see that North America doesn't actually have any through these 20 years, nor the Soviets, Asia, all of that area. So it's quite a rare thing to witness a solar eclipse. And this is the astronomy of it, and it's not to scale, all right, this diagram. But what it's saying is eclipses occur when the Earth and the Moon are aligned with the Sun. And the shadow of one body cast by the Sun falls on the other. So here we're getting the Moon's shadow falling on Earth and blocking our view of the Sun. And it's extraordinary how the Sun and Moon, as seen from Earth, are the same size. It's quite magical. So twice a year, eclipses occur. So when the Moon is in conjunction with the Sun, that's a new moon, and it's saying the Moon may pass in front of the Sun as seen from a narrow region on the surface of the Earth, not the whole Earth, notice, just a narrow region. And they're very important for world events, which is the area called mundane astrology. So countries, a country that has got that particular degree, or the other major events that can occur because the Sun at an eclipse, suddenly the land rather is darkened, and then that if there's an earthquake pattern in the Earth over that particular land, earthquakes can then happen afterwards because it's a sudden cold and then heat again. It's a contrast. So an eclipse is a time of change. And the solar eclipse, think of it, it's an extra potent new moon. This one is actually a supermoon. There are quite a few supermoons, they aren't rare, but it is also called a supermoon. And it's showing the completion of one cycle and the beginning of the next. And the solar eclipse energy lasts 6 months. And it's the degree of the eclipse, which is 29 degrees of Pisces, is ultra-sensitive. Now, as it happens, Mercury, which has been retrograde, if you noticed that earlier in the year, well, so Mercury is at the moment behind the Sun. It's acting as a guide. and it will transit that degree on the 30th of March, 30th, 31st of March. Eclipses, and I'm going to be saying this and repeating this message throughout this presentation, they signal what we need to change. They are a rebirth. And this particular eclipse at the very last degree of Pisces is magical. We can change our perspective. And they affect us personally if we have any planet, and that means any planet, within 2 degrees of that eclipse. So if you, especially of course, if you have a planet between 26 Pisces and 2 Aries, then you're in the firing line, so to speak. And also, absolutely, if your birthday is this week, within 2 days, either yesterday, today, or Saturday, Sunday, it will mean a very important year. It will be a year with major life changes. And that doesn't necessarily mean they are bad. I have to emphasize that. Because it's the final degree of Pisces, it's a tying up of loose ends. It's letting go of old energy. And think of water. It's a water sign. If water isn't moving, it becomes stagnant. So that's why we need to refresh. We need to move that energy forward into the next sign, of course, which is Aries. This is a little diagram showing you that the nodes of the moon aren't planets. All planets have nodes, by the way, just so you know. Anyhow, the nodes of the moon aren't planets. They are 2 opposite points. Here's the lunar north, here's the lunar south, and the dotted line is the moon's orbit. The solid line is the sun's orbit. So as you can see, it's where those 2 orbits cross, and that's the nodes of the moon. They are known in Vedic astrology as shadow planets, and they're called Rahu, the north node, and Ketu, the south node. And eclipses occur when there's a new moon, that's the solar eclipse, or a full moon, the lunar eclipse, when they occur when about 15 degrees of the nodes, and that happens twice a year. The closer they are, the more we call it a total eclipse. The further away that is, it's called partial. And there's another word for it, I can't remember off the top of my head. Anyhow, in your chart, the nodes of the moon could be called the axis of destiny. Now they are always opposite each other, okay? Always. They're like a plane or an axis. They stay, the nodes of the moon stay in one side of the zodiac for approximately a year and a half, 18 months. And people born in that time span would be your soul group. And of course you have to know your chart to know if you're at the beginning or the end or in the middle. But in approximately 18 years, the cycle repeats. So people born 18 years apart from us will share the same lunar node sign. So you could say they're aligned to your soul group. The nodes of the moon move backwards against the order of the zodiac. They spend about 18 months in each sign, and they are key indicators, places of growth, but also stagnation. And what they're doing is they're connecting 3 primary astrological elements. They're the moon, habit and emotion, the sun, which is creativity, consciousness, spirit, life, of course, and the place where we live, which is Earth. Now, from March last year, March 23rd, until October 10th this year, 2015, the moon's nodes are transiting through Libra, North Node, and Aries, South Node. Therefore, over the period of 18 months, our personal relationships are affected, and anger issues can erupt, especially when Mars travels through Aries for 6 weeks, which it is doing now. It started February 20th, and it ends on April the 1st. So we're coming toward the end, but Mars, as I said, is very strong. It's in its own sign. And Mars gets what it wants. That's the energy of Mars. It's all about me, and there's nothing wrong with that, except when it imposes itself on others through force. Now, an amazing astrologer called Dane Rudyard, he talks about the symbolism of the nodes. He lived in the last century now. He's no longer on the planet, but his work is brilliant. And he says, as the moon reaches its north node and it enters the area of north latitude, it's as if it were opening itself to cosmic or spiritual influences, symbolically represented by the North Pole, and then more specifically the pole star Polaris. Thus, the north lunar node represents the point of intake of spiritual cosmic energies, and it was called the dragon's head. The nodal axis is symbolized by a dragon. And in this picture of the stars, here you can see the Draco, the dragon, this constellation called Draco. Here he is, here's the head, right around the ecliptic pole. Polaris now is over here on the right, the North Star, with Ursa Minor is also there as well. Ursa Major will be close by. Now, that's the North Pole, right? So there is the energy of us breathing in or taking in the spiritual cosmic energies at an eclipse. Draco, the dragon, guards the North Pole, and this is a point of stillness around which our world revolves. Draco, the dragon, is also a snake or a serpent in the Garden of Eden, and it once occupied a much larger space in the heavens, encompassing Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, the great she-bear or mother goddess. Ursa Minor was known as the dragon's wings, and the dragon is half bird, half snake. So this celestial dragon guarded the greatest of treasures, the pivot point of the world, the ecliptic. And this dragon never slept because, as a constellation, it never sets. That means it's circumpolar. In other words, it's going around the pole. And it can be called the guardian of the spiritual treasure. I love this. I think this is quite magical. For those of you who love dragons, hopefully you'll understand the symbolism of this and how the dragon always, doesn't it? They always sit on the treasure. That's what they're guarding. If you've seen the latest Hobbit movie, you'll understand what I'm saying. Okay, so the current pole star is called Polaris, the spiritual center, the still point in the turning world. And that's, to me, a beautiful image for us to meditate on. So I'll move on, of course. Eclipses are seen as a time of chaos. And there's a lot in the news about how wonderful this eclipse is, but also to recognize this aspect of chaos, which is a creative energy, by the way. But the eclipse was considered a struggle between a world of order and the world of chaos. And they involved the moon's nodes, as I've just said, called the dragon's head and the dragon's tail. And the idea is if the sun came close to these points, then it could be eaten. The lunar eclipses were far more frequently observed, so they weren't interruptions of chaos. However, a solar eclipse was observed rarely, and you can see just with that previous diagram, how in 20 years, huge parts of the world won't actually observe a solar eclipse. So in the Babylonian cosmology, this dragon is chaos. He's called Tiamat, and he could threaten the order of the world. And this leads me, rather nicely I hope, into the Vedic story called the Churning of the Ocean. That's what you're seeing in this beautiful illustration. And the idea is that the gods wanted the nectar of immortality, called the soma, which is another word for the moon. And they needed the help of the demons because the demons were strong. And they said, if you help us, we'll share this with you. But they had no intention of keeping their word. However, the demons kind of bought the story. So they can see they've all got together and they're all pulling and squeezing the big serpent around Mount Meru for the nectar. So the oceans are churned That's the idea. There's a churning going on for over eons of time. Eventually out came the soma, the liquid. The gods then had a banquet. They plied the demons with alcohol and dancing girls. And if you've had a few drinks, you might know that you had a few, you think you're immortal. But however, one demon was cleverer than the rest. He disguised himself as one of the gods, got in the queue. Just as he drank the real thing, the sun and moon saw through his disguise and told Lord Vishnu, protector of the universe. And Lord Vishnu threw a discus and he cut this demon in half at the neck. Because it's immortal, you see, that's the thing, it's just drank the nectar. The head goes one way, the body goes the opposite into the zodiac. And they go backwards through the zodiac. And they don't like the sun and moon. So this is what happens when they catch up with the sun or moon, they swallow them. Therefore the head swallows the sun and out comes the sun. It's got no body to digest. And tomorrow we'll have a south node, so the body, K2, it can't chew, it can't digest the sun. So again, the sun will reappear. I love this story. I think it's a wonderful story to explain eclipses. And like I've said in the description, they don't like the sun or moon. So there is fear around this because light has disappeared temporarily. Now in astrology there are different viewpoints about interpretation of an eclipse. Traditionally, author Stephanie Johnson writes, the North Node and South Node form an axis in astrology representing one's destiny or spiritual quest in life. And this is linked very much to our purpose. So the North Node is said to point towards a key lesson that we're wanting to learn, new experiences toward which we must aim during this life. In other words, a destiny, our destination that we travel toward. We've already learnt the skills of its opposite point, the South Node, in the past. Now we must grow and stretch ourselves through the North Node. However, Dane Rudhyar, this extraordinary astrologer in the last century, 20th century, he gives a different spin on it. And he's saying, the dragon's tail, the South Node is the dragon's tail. So from a biological and functional point of view, the North Lunar Node is the mouth of the animal, the South Lunar Node the organs of evacuation, which is both the anus and the procreative organs from which the seed goes forth. The South Lunar Node refers not only to the point of excretion of waste materials, but the seed, release of seed materials. Therefore, it's something to be used, isn't it? Not just, been there, done that. And so they both, to me, got this incredible symbology and deeper meaning, and it's worth exploring. And I have noticed more and more people actually have more of a problem with the South Node than the North, letting go especially of stuff, which is what he's referring to. And coming back to Bernadette Brady, who I should have credited her earlier, but I credited her at the end. She teaches that those in our chart are places where chaos can enter our lives. She is a wonderful astrologer, Australian, has written really interesting books about the fixed stars and about eclipses. So she's saying the North Node is what we invite it in, we invite this chaos in. Therefore it's like conscious crisis and disruption. And her example, and interesting enough, somebody actually said this was in fact exactly what they were doing at this time. You decide to decorate your bedroom. You clear the furniture, take days to paint it. So it does, of course, cause disruption. The South Node is more unconscious chaos and crisis. So this can come in the form of illness or family problems that we have little control over. And this is where we can have got derailed in our lives, off track in other words. The other wonderful concept that I really enjoy is thinking of this as stimulating, an eclipse is stimulating the pineal gland. And this is the work of Stephanie Austin. I love different astrologers and how they give different information, points of view to contemplate. And she says the eclipse realigns the Earth's electromagnetic field and our own individual energy field. Eclipses function to delete old programs and upload new templates. They mark the ending of our 18-19 year cycle, the beginning of a new direction. They also stimulate the pineal gland, the seat of our soul and our third eye. And that's what this diagram, it's the Anja, the third eye in Hindu philosophy. So this is our inner vision, our creativity. So an eclipse can facilitate an awakening of our soul's blueprint. Whatever you do tonight, please make a point of saying, please, whatever I dream about, can it be useful? Can it be instructive? Talk to your dreams. It does work. And if you can, take some time in the morning to write down whatever it is that you might have dreamt of. Because that's how our subconscious and unconscious speaks to us, through dreams, through metaphors. And don't put pressure on yourself, please don't. But if you don't do it tonight, just do it over the next few days, especially when we're in eclipse season. And the lunar eclipse, April the 4th, so we're in that energy now for at least the next 2 weeks. So it could be a practice that if you don't do it already, to keep a dream journal. So here it is, this is the time, March 20th, 9:31 Universal Time, that's obviously GMT, the UK. The centre of the moon's shadow will cover the North Pole, but partial eclipse is visible from Greenland, Iceland, Northern Europe, Northern Africa, the Middle East and Northwest Asia, with a maximum, and it's a short eclipse, 2 minutes and 45 seconds. Last year we had a 6-minute eclipse, which is very long. An eclipse day is always a time of meditation, of going within. It is not a good day to launch or start anything. However, we are moving into the sign of Aries. But a lunar, think of a new moon, there's no moon, it's not there, it's dark. Therefore, if you want to reach the public, I would never suggest launching anything on any new moon, for that matter. It's best to wait till the moon is visible, but especially so tomorrow. The nodes of the moon are in Libra and Aries. Libra is ruled by Venus, Aries by Mars, and Venus is the planet of desire, relationships and love. Mars, planet of war, passion, self-interest. Libra always wants harmony and peace in all areas of our life, but Aries wants to initiate, it's a pioneer, it wants action, it wants it now. That's Aries. I can't wait, it's impatient. So the transit of the North Node in Libra is to signal to balance our relationship, to bring justice into our lives, hence the scales of justice. The South Node in Aries, ruled by Mars, wants action. It wants to fight, it wants to initiate, and this is increased by the energy of Uranus in Aries. That's a 7-year transit of Uranus in Aries, so it's not just this month. And it demands innovation and change. And this is more significant at the lunar eclipse, all right, on the 4th of April, not so much tomorrow. The problem with Libra, it can procrastinate. It can be indecisive. It can be passive-aggressive. So therefore it causes the very fights it finds distasteful. Then it can be the peacemaker, which is a great role for Libra, by the way, and it is known as the diplomat of the zodiac. So getting our relationships in balance is really important. And it's, of course, understandable, hopefully, that most of us would prefer to stay on the Libran side of this axis because it's more pleasing and it's a less demanding sign. However, with Mars currently in Aries, this puts a lot of pressure on war, not peace. So if you have a planet or one of the angles in your chart, the same degree as an eclipse, it also means a big change in that area of your life. But change isn't a bad thing. It's about growth. It's about evolution. Big events can occur if it's really, really strong in your chart, i.e. next to a planet. Birth of a baby, a marriage, or a change of home or career. These are major life events. So notice what house in your birth chart this eclipse takes place, because whatever that house represents, those aspects of your life are apt to change. And if you don't know your chart, you can go to astro.com and get one for free. Right, here we are again. Here's the chart again, this time using my color coding wheel and just in abbreviations. So there you can see red sector, that's Aries. However, the Sun and Moon are still in the magenta sector, along with Neptune, Mercury, Chiron. So the water element is dominating. 5 planets in Pisces. Emotional, sensitive, healing, receptive. That's what water is. It absorbs. Think of a sponge. That's water, isn't it? It's taking in the energy. The fire element of Aries, there are 4 planets and the South Node. Therefore, we have the South Node, Uranus, Mars, they're in fire. Jupiter is in Leo, that's a fire sign. Saturn is also in a fire sign. But Saturn tends to depress whatever elements it is in. It doesn't uplift it. But it's balanced a lot by Jupiter, which is very uplifting. Earth, at this eclipse, there are 2 planets in Earth. Venus is in Earth sign, as is Pluto. Air is weak. Air is a communication energy, and the only thing we've got here is the North Node. We have in the UK got Gemini rising, and Aquarius is what we call the mid-heaven, but even so, there's no actual planet in air. So we need to breathe, circulate, but also air, communicates, and it's weak at the moment. That energy is weak. Therefore, there might be misunderstandings going on. There are, in terms of fixed and mutable and cardinal, we have the Sun and Moon immutable, which means flexible, all right, and the Sun and Moon are trining. They're making a good relationship to Saturn. That's why I'd say focus on healing in Saturn. Venus is fixed, but it's what we call an inconjunct. That's a difficult aspect. Think of the word itself, inconjunct. It's difficult to say. It's a letting go aspect with Saturn in Sagittarius. Mars is in the cardinal sign, the sign of Aries, meaning the signs to do with the seasons of the year. That's what cardinal ones, they want action. They're turning points. It's moving away, has moved away from its conjunction with Uranus, but also it did square Pluto. So it's no longer activating the difficult tension of the T-square that has been going, not T-square, yeah, it is T-square with the nose of the moon, but the square of Pluto and Uranus, which has been going on since 2012 and has finally ended this week, but the effects will go on for quite a few years to come. Mercury, the messenger, is in Pisces. It's close to both Neptune, where it passed this week, and it's moving towards Chiron. It's the healer. It's also making a right angle square, has been making to Saturn. So Saturn is holding a lot of the tension at this eclipse, and Saturn wants grounding. It likes the status quo. It's in the religious sign of Sagittarius, and that's what we're seeing in the world. It's been going on for a long time when Pluto moved into Sagittarius quite a few years back, but it is this religious, my way, my God, which we're seeing in the IS, the terrorists who believe that they're God, everyone else is a devil worshipper. It's that rigidity, and this eclipse is helped, I would say, because Jupiter is involved, very much so, because of that nice trine Jupiter's making from Leo up to Uranus at this time. So we're being helped, but there's as I said, there's still a lot of tension here. Now, in Vedic astrology, which I practice as well as Western astrology, I love the fact that I get information which is useful. It's the whole point to me of astrology, that it can be useful to clients. And this eclipse is totally in Pisces. Here it is, top left. This is all Pisces. This is a whole sign zodiac. It's clockwise, so completely different from the Western chart in that sense. But you can just easily see here's Mars, Uranus, South Node, Sun, Moon, here all in Pisces. Pisces is ruled by Jupiter in Vedic astrology. There is no Neptune, even though I put it in the chart. But it's governed by Jupiter, and Jupiter is exalted in the constellation of Cancer. Vedic astrology is to do with the actual constellations, not the signs of the zodiac. The two were the same 2,000 years ago, but they have separated. So even though we're going tomorrow, it's the first day of spring, vernal equinox, sun 0 degrees Aries, it's not actually. It's still way back at 6 degrees roughly in Pisces. Astronomers always think astrologers don't know this, but we do. Jupiter is trining. It's making a powerful whole sign aspect of Cancer to Scorpio. It's also looking directly at Capricorn. It's also looking at Pisces. Therefore, we have a whole lot of planets at the moment being helped by Jupiter's presence. Jupiter moves forward on the 4th of April. Therefore, it's going to get stronger. Now, lunar mansions are a way of dividing up the chart, the sky. The Vedic astrology is very Indian. It's to do with the feminine energy. And this particular one is called Uttara Bhadrapada. It's ruled by Saturn. And the key words, which I'm sure you've read ahead of me, are wisdom, self-sacrifice, transformation of anger, water, and coolness. And the symbol is a snake in water. The snake is deep wisdom. However, it can use that wisdom for dubious purposes. However, action undertaken won't be hot-headed and it will always be considered. That's a positive. So in the spiritual Vedic view, and I love the work of Sam Geppie, American astrologer, and he often gives a nice little spin on things. He's saying the eclipse connects us with the South Node, so it urges us to end habitual and instinctive patterns. That's what the South Node represents. Mars, of course, is very active, so the energy to take some action is present. And he talks about past lives, and I agree with him, but they're always seen, whatever past life stories, it's seen in childhood in a condensed form. So this eclipse is giving us potential to elevate to a much higher consciousness, which is what Pisces represent. And the need is to turn away, let go of self-medication in the form of escapism. You know, and it's not easy, is it? Sometimes we need certain things to escape, but if we're doing it habitually, then there's something amiss. And drugs is an obvious one, alcohol, of course, but you know, too much TV could also be the same. Or too much texting, for instance, not connecting with anybody. You know, everyone's not looking at each other anymore. You know, this is a time of cleansing and connecting to the universe. Fear is a big problem as an eclipse, because an eclipse is a time of darkness, of ignorance, the low vibration. The ego, a small part of us, resists change because it's fear of the unknown. However, if we never change, we'd all remain as children or have a child's mentality. We may fear taking chances. Safety and security can be an issue. We can resist change as well as input from others. I mean, not listening to other people, not getting wise advice. We may find ourselves imprisoned by the world of the five senses and need to learn to fearlessly confront the possibility of crisis and change in our lives and our relationships. And remember that Venus is actually in a fixed sign of Taurus, so it can be stubborn. That's the status quo. Mars in the action sign of Aries can also be impulsive and rash. I'm just showing you a couple of the negatives here. Now at an eclipse, think of it, it's a pathway which will be dark and then lit up again. So it's like a spotlight shining on the pathway of your life. It suddenly flashes on and off. It brings hidden patterns to the surface. So look in your chart where 29 degrees of Pisces is, because that's the house that's being activated. So, like this ostrich, what have you shoved under the carpet? Will you be willing to accept the challenge being offered by the events of the eclipse? Are you willing to make the necessary changes in your life? And are you ready to let go of the past? So there's a few little questions to ponder. Now this Sabian symbol, these are wonderful, that they were produced in 1925 by a clairvoyant called Elsie Wheeler with an astrologer called Mark Edmund Jones, and they're most popularly used set of degree symbols today. So what they are is a symbolic interpretation of the meaning of each degree of the zodiac, so from 0 Aries right through to 30 Pisces. And this is 30 degrees of Pisces. A majestic rock formation resembling a face is idealized by a boy who takes it up as his ideal of greatness. And as he grows up, he begins to look like it. So the idea to meditate on a goal or a projection of an ideal can lead to actuality. Enduring truths, culmination of efforts, concrete manifestation of one's ideals, which is to me really positive. And it said, be clear about what you want, you might just get it. And these beautiful, I think these are very enigmatic faces, are a place called Banyon, Angkor, in Cambodia. And they are from Wikipedia, hence I've given obviously credit to them. So this is the stone face, the ideal we can grow into. Now, at a spring equinox, which is March the 20th, tomorrow, we have equal day and night. That's what equinox actually means. It's, of course, a shift of season. It's spring in the northern hemisphere, it's winter, obviously, autumn rather, down in the southern hemisphere. It represents new beginnings, birth. That's the sign of Aries. It's from the water of the womb to the fire of initiation and life. You know, that is a birth process that we go through every year. Think of the ram itself. It's a head first. That's what the ram is known for. That's the symbol, is Aries. Looks like the ram's horns. It's a time to plant seeds. The time, you know, traditionally it isn't it? The time to get out in the garden and start planning what you're going to grow. It's also a very good time, if you haven't done it already, the beginning of the year, but it's a better time actually, spring equinox, to do some goal setting, to think, where are you heading? It's the first sign of the zodiac. Now I'm a great follower, for those of you who know me, of Deepak Chopra, and he's at the moment doing another 21-day free meditation experience. I have no financial gain in promoting him, right? But on the first day, which was this Monday, he talked about manifesting true success, and I thought that was really interesting what he talked about. You can sign up for it and still receive that Monday start. You know, it lasts for 5 days, then they dissolve it, but it's 21 days. Anyhow, what inspires you on the deepest level? What is your worthy goal? This is what he asks. And your goal can and should evolve. And you can set new ones. You know, nothing's set here. But they should really be something that truly empowers you, that lasts for you, has meaning for you. So some of the ideas he put forward, and the first one, being of service, that is truly my goal. And when I'm ever stuck, I go, who needs my help? That's my own little mantra. Love and compassion, that can be your goal. Promoting peace, worthy goal. Teaching others. Pursuing creative expression. I also have to say I love doing anything creative. Promoting culture. Exploration and discovery. That's a very Sagittarian goal, by the way. Protecting the weak. All of these, I'm sure you've got your own, but these are some ideas. As I said, his meditation series is all about success, but it's always meditation. It's always a high level. It's not about just making a quick buck or two. Now, coming to the crux of this eclipse is about Aries and Libra. So the question is, are you in a fight? Fights come about because of control. We try and control other people, and they try controlling us. And fights come about from the need to be right. So the question is, would you rather be right, or would you rather be happy? And a fight also avoids us taking the next step in our lives. Now, healing comes from joining, trust and integration. You might not be in a fight, all right, so it doesn't apply to you. Great, you're doing fantastically. But most of us do tend to come up against a fight now and again. So this is for you for the future. So this eclipse at the last degree of Pisces and with the South Node is, as I keep saying, a time of letting go. And a fight can also be like a grievance. This is another thing to be thinking about. If you've got any grievance that will be holding you back right now. So the letting go energy, especially with Pisces, it's so emotional, it's so deep, it's so sensitive. But the question I'm suggesting for you at the moment is, who or what do you have a grievance with right now? Who or what do you need to forgive? And this could be a person, it could be an organization, it could be the terrorists in the world that you see, any injustice. And the healing practice that I do use, not every day, I hasten to add, I'm not that perfect, but I do use this process, and it's a forgiveness process. You might have heard of it. It's called Ho'oponopono. It's an ancient Hawaiian practice of reconciliation and forgiveness, and it's as practiced by a healing priest called kahunas. And Ho'oponopono means to make right. It means to make right with the ancestors, or to make right with the people with whom we have relationships. And it's a mantra. And a mantra is a sound, a word, a group of words that is considered capable of creating transformation. It's a way of connecting with the collective unconscious. And I'm just going to share a little story about this. It's the idea is that everything, we are creating everything in our world. Everyone is our projection. So whatever's going on around us is we're the director of our movie. Therefore, we can change it with this particular practice. And I was travelling home one night from London, and it was a very, very cold, bitterly cold winter's night. And there's some problem with the trains, and I was with a friend, and we all had to get off the train at Gatwick, and we had to stand there, and then another train came, and that offloaded its passengers, and then another one. There was 3 full trains of people standing on this platform. And then we waited and waited, and finally another train arrived, and that was the only one for an hour to come. So you can imagine we all were dashing to get on this train. I was separated from my friend, but she shared this with me later. As the train started where she was, and I was, everyone was standing, it was a real crush. the carriage that she was in, a young girl started to have a panic attack. And my friend Jenny used this process, this Ho'oponopono, which I'm going to share with you in half a minute. And she did it silently. It's not something you go around, talking out loud to people. They might not understand you. She just did it silently because she recognized that that woman was her, that that panic was her panic. And as she said the words to herself internally, the woman quietened and all was well. My friend Jenny used this a lot to great effect, and I have too. Especially on trains when somebody's acting out and you can't leave the carriage, you can't move. It's a very, very potent thing to know about. So I'm going to share that with you if you don't already know it. And the book where you can read in depth about this whole process is written by a man called Joe Vitale, who is featured in The Secret, and it's called Zero Limits. So, if you'd like to close your eyes, obviously not if you're listening to this while you're driving, hopefully you're not. If you'd like to just close your eyes a moment for this healing exercise of letting go of a grievance. So I'm just going to ask you, again, the question, who or what do you have a grievance with right now? Or who do you need to forgive? So if you just imagine that person or people standing in front of you and recognize that you've been using this person or people and that grievance that you have against them to hold yourself back. Now, underneath the grievance will be a soul-level gift that you've been hiding, you've been keeping quiet about, and it's your gift to give. So imagine that in that you might have the gift of, obviously, of love as an obvious gift. Compassion may be your gift. Peace. Leadership. Leading the way. So whatever that gift is, connect with it now. And then direct these words, this mantra, towards those you need to forgive. And the words are, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I love you. Thank you. And those words can set you free, and they can certainly set free the person you've got the grievance with. And it can be quite miraculous, because I've witnessed this in my own life, how that person becomes your friend. They must be your friend anyhow to start with. Often it's the way. My final card to show you is a card that was chosen today by a client of mine. And this is a card, a grace card. It's Heaven's Gift, and it's a card of communion. So you can open your eyes again now to look at this beautiful card. And communion, this is the work of Chuck Spezzano, my mentor. Communion is a level of communication where there is so much love that union has occurred. Communion joins minds to such a level that mysticism emerges. So the invitation is to open the door in your mind to access the intoxicating love shared between you and God. So give yourself totally, withholding nothing. And he says love makes you drunk because it pulls back the veil of separation and it reveals that divine is winking back at you. In communion we see the true nature of things and can experience people shining as an opening to the divine. kind of fits with the High Priestess, I thought. The veil of separation, which is the energy that moves from Pisces to Aries after all, is opening for us at this eclipse to see the joke, see the divine winking back at us. So thank you very much for attending this webinar, for watching, listening, and being with me this magical evening. And I'm going to be doing another one. I'll do another one on the lunar eclipse, so I'll be putting a link on that tomorrow. But you can, if you sign up for my newsletter, forgotten the word, www.healingstars.com, you'll receive that. And I credit Bernadette Brady, Chuck Spezzano, Deepak Chopra, and Gepi.